All right, here we go. And in 3, 2, 1.
Yippee-Ki-Yay, mother.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Welcome to Yippee-Ki-Yay Mother Podcast. How's it going, everybody?
Hello.
Nicely done. One take, Ralph.
That's how it works. That's how I roll.
I love it.
John, you have something you want to say?
Yeah. So just to our viewers out there, you guys know that Ralph and I, on Cue It Up and on this show, we talk about our family quite a bit. On January 29th, our father passed away. He was 88 years old. Since Thanksgiving, he has had kind of a tough time. So I was actually in California. He actually passed on my birthday. So it's a doubly special day. So it really worked out well. That's one last dig at me. I know that's why he did that.
A gangster. He's an original gangster.
I'm telling you. He's laughing. I know he's laughing because now it's going to be, John, happy birthday. So sorry about your father. I mean, it's going to be like that for the rest of my life. But anyway, we talked about should we do the show or not. And the reality is anyone who knows my dad knows that the show must go on. And he would say, and he has said this to me, hey, I'm going to be dead. I'm not going to care. So move on with your life. And that's exactly what we're going to do because that's what he would have wanted us to do.
Well, we're going to move on with our lives until your next birthday, I guess. Is what's going to happen. Sorry, buddy.
This is funny, but one of the best memories I have is that night we spent with him the night after Thanksgiving in the emergency room all night long. I think, and that was probably the last decent night he had, even though it was horrible. But,
well, I saw him a few more times when he was, you didn't, but I did. But can we tell him what he said?
I forget. He was laughing.
Okay, so when he first went in the hospital, they had no room for him, so they had him in the emergency room for like 3 days. So we didn't want him to be alone. So my brother and I went in there at 5:00 in the afternoon, and we stayed all night in the emergency room on the floor. Well, about 1:00, a nurse came in who'd been really, really nice to him. And Ralph and I stood up, and I said, Dad, there's actually enough room on this bed for me and Ralph, so we don't have to sleep on the floor. And he goes, yeah, there's actually room for 4. And then he looks right at the nurse. And I said, I want to apologize for my father sexually harassing you. He's got Parkinson's. He's probably not right. And he's just like going with the eyebrows. So even though he had a really rough time, there were moments like that where, like I would say to him, he looked really bad for a while. And then for about a week, something happened and he just looked so much better. His color was better. He was more alert. And I would say to him, Dad, you look great. And he would always say, compared to what? That's what he would always say. Compared to what? That was his line. So even up until the end, he had those moments. And believe me, based on where he was at, he's in a far better place now than he was. So we will miss him.
And,
but
he's in it.
It was awful.
My mother this is going to help. It's
great life though. 88 years old. We should all be so lucky.
Yeah.
So
he had a good life, and he raised a bunch
it.
of kids who love him and love my mother, and
most of them turned out pretty well.
Some of
kids.
1 out of 5 ain't bad.
Well, we're not.
Ratio.
I'll let
all
you
right,
decide.
so let's move on. Let's do the show, and then
let's talk about classic films. That's what I want to talk about.
Yes, John brought a classic film. Unfortunately, brought a classic film, and then we'll do a lightning round of what you watch.
Yeah.
Again, 2 minutes per square.
Didn't watch a lot, but
and then I'm sure you didn't.
I did.
And then
football, whatever.
That'll be it for this week. So, and then we'll spin. Drew and Debbie are left on the wheel. So it's going to be
very exciting.
It'll be a death match on the wheel for you.
Oh man, talk about a dichotomy of choices between those two. Wow.
So, John, what'd you bring?
So I brought the 1936 classic, and I mean classic film, Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, directed by Frank Capra, starring the amazing Gary Cooper, Gene Arthur, Lionel Stander, who played Max on Hart to Hart. For those you want a later reference,
that was a few years later.
Yeah.
Oh, he was the young guy that followed him around.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, the guy talked like this. Come on, Longfellow, and H.B. Warner, who was
Mr.
Gower, and Jesus Christ in the silent film, big silent movie star. But this
and Douglas Trumbrells.
Who was
Douglas
he?
Trumbrells, the guy who played the lawyer. He was in everything.
Who was excellent. So this movie is about Longfellow Deeds, a young yokel who lives in Mandrake Falls, played by obviously Gary Cooper, who's wonderful in this movie. And this is really the movie that put him on the map, and also Frank Capra, because right after this came Lost Horizon, Meet John Doe, and what's the other one he did? I'm
Smith Goes to Washington. He did It Happen One Night before this stuff.
Yes, where he won all the Academy Awards. That's right. But this was the first movie his name went over the title.
Yeah.
And then he became huge. So this is a story about Longfellow Deeds, who inherits $20 million from an uncle, and the money is thrust upon him. They bring him to New York, and basically what the movie is about how all the hangers-on come after him for his money, and how he doesn't even, when he finds out he wins the money, all he wants to do is eat lunch and play the tuba. He doesn't even react to it. And then he gets disillusioned by a woman who pretends, a newspaper reporter played by Jean Arthur, who plays Babe. Her name was Babe, fast-talking newspaper woman, and she pretends to be someone else and wins him over and kind of embarrasses him as the Cinderella man. And then they fall in love. So he's disheartened by that. And he ends up, this is during the Great Depression. So he eventually ends up wanting to give away all his money to the all the men who are out of work. And they end up trying to put him in a nut house. And because of what happened with the reporter, and because of his disillusionment, he doesn't even fight back. And the best scene in the movie is when he decides, okay, now I'm going to fight back, and he takes everybody down. It's just I love this movie. I know it's, they call Frank Capra movies Capra Corn, and this is definitely one of those movies. But Gary Cooper reminds me of Jimmy Stewart. They always say about Gary Cooper, when he's doing these films, it's nothing special till it shows up on the screen, and then it's something special. And that's just what he's like. Very likable character. In fact, the sequel was going to be Mr. Deeds Goes to Washington instead of Mr. Smith, and they ended up going a little different direction, which I think would have been really a very different movie, I think. But I just love this movie. This is a movie that I say this all the time. It's one of those movies that if it comes on, I'll watch it from whatever point it's at. That's how much I love this movie. I especially love Gary Cooper. And Jean Arthur is really interesting because she used to get stage fright and had trouble performing, where she would get sick, like throwing up sick before she'd do a scene. She was also very insistent on only being filmed from one side because she felt one side was much better than the other. And she's great as this. And she was always good in the Capra movies. I love her a lot too. But even and Ralph even mentioned this. I'm surprised he even noticed it. But Capra used a lot of the same character actors in all his movies, and this is definitely one of those. But it is Gary Cooper's movie. He's just so likable, and when he gives his comeuppance at the end to everybody, it's just such a well done scene. And one other little tidbit you might not know: this would have been great for our shorts when we were doing those. The word doodle was first used in this movie, and it came in our vernacular because of this movie. The screenwriter wrote that word. It was not a word that existed.
Robert Riskin.
That's right, Robert Riskin. So it was it's a word that didn't, and pixelated too was a word that was used in this movie. Not nearly as common as doodle, but I just thought that was kind of interesting.
There's another one he did. It was doodle and something else he said the lawyer was doing, filling in the O's.
Oh, O-filler. It was an O-filler. Yeah. That whole scene is wonderful when he finally decides to do something about it. It reminded me of Miracle on 34th Street, when Chris wouldn't defend himself. But just, look,
I'm a pocket puller.
That's right. You all know I love classic movies. I just love them. I embrace them. And I know some of you guys don't like them, but I like bringing these, especially after Triangle of Tears. I wanted to watch something that I love. And that's not to say, Ralph, I know you love that movie, but I didn't. I just wanted to watch something and I really went through the list. I was actually going to pick Star Wars because of the conversation we had where Ralph was getting all bent out of shape over Star Wars, and I wanted to pay him back for Triangle of Tears. But I said, you know what? This is a great movie.
Sadness, not Triangle of Tears.
Well, because I was crying after the movie because I hated it so much.
Whatever.
I think that's why.
God.
But this is, again, one of my favorite movies. I love this movie. I can't wait to hear what you guys all think about it. So that's it.
Anyone?
Ralph, why don't you go first? I'd like to hear what you think about it.
What I think about it.
Well, I'm going to be going blue, so let's hear Ralph first.
Well, what I think about it, I can see the power of Gary Cooper. I mean, he was a very naturalistic actor. I like his acting style. Reminds me of Kevin Costner when he does his relaxed thing.
Yeah.
I could see Costner doing this as well, playing the
What about Adam Sandler
with the tuba.
Adam Sandler? No,
I
see
can't
Adam
see him.
Sandler
I know
doing
there was a remake, and I'm sure that
Deeds.
sucked.
That's a good call, though, Ralph. That's a good call. I could see that.
I can see that. I can see, and I recognize even the lawyer who represented the cousin, and he was also in It's a Wonderful Life, right? He was around Capra stuff.
He was also in the big store with the Marx Brothers.
Yeah.
Right.
He was in like 200.
But having said that,
Yep.
I just don't understand your love for these films, except that it's old Hollywood. I mean, this guy should have been arrested about 4 times in this film for smacking people for no reason because he got.
You could hit people back then.
He even did it in the
was
courtroom
fun.
and didn't get arrested in the courtroom. He
Different
smacked the
time.
lawyer, punched him right in the face.
Different time.
And this all
Jimmy
shucks,
Stewart was
I'm just
punching
gonna,
people,
I'm just
too.
gonna
Yeah,
punch
like
him, sock
Deadwood.
him in the face. I did, but I do like the report. The one thing about Capra is like, and the movie you said before this, Sean, with It Happened One Night. Is that the one you mentioned?
Clark Gable. Carol
I
Lombard.
love that film.
Not
Yeah.
Carol Lombard.
And part of it is the patter that they have in these films seems naturalistic. I know it
Claudette
isn't.
Colbert.
I know it's not naturalistic, but for some reason in Capra films, it just feels a little more real. So
You're not stagey.
not stagey,
Yeah.
not stagey.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's
again,
what I like about like the Thin Man movies. Is
Yeah.
that William Powell and Myrna Loy are very naturalistic, but often all the supporting actors they're in some sort of drawing room drama.
Yeah.
Theatrical drawing.
well, this
But
also
they're
had the
very
two
modern
cameramen that were following them around everywhere. They were
Right.
kind of, a comic relief or whatever. The whole movie was, I mean, I liked it. I didn't love it. I liked it. It's okay. Will I ever watch it again? No, I don't need to see it again.
Did you like the last scene where he did that whole thing?
Yeah, it was fine. I liked it.
And
Yes,
when
I liked
HB
that
Warner
he's
said,
able
"This
to.
is you're the sanest man I ever met."
I like that he's able to pick up. But John, that's the happy ending that you're going to get in all these films.
Well,
The
that's a
sappy,
Capra movie. I mean, that's
happy
a
ending.
Capra movie.
Right. But I do like that he kind of realized he picked on everybody's, he found the weakness or whatever, their ticks. He found them and used them to help support him. I like that. But you're right. It's just like Miracle on 34th Street. It's the same idea that they have this weird court thing that anybody can stand up in court and say whatever they
Right.
want. It doesn't make any sense. But in this film, in this world, it makes sense.
Right.
But I mean, it's okay. I wouldn't watch it again.
he should have had a big rock
I'll
and hit someone over the head with it.
He was smacking a lot of people. And I will say I like the Triangle of Sadness a lot better. So not that is not my barometer of everything now, but in your context, the fact you keep bringing it up. So
Well, I think.
yeah,
in
I mean,
70
Gary,
years,
I can see
I
the
think
power
in 70
of Gary
years they'll be
Cooper, though.
talking about the Triangle of Sadness.
What's that?
I think in 70 years they'll be talking about the Triangle of Sadness.
They may be.
Like
Who's
they
talking
do
about this film?
Mr. D- it's
Everybody?
always in the top
Us.
100 films.
Okay, Sean, jump in. Tell me how great this film is.
Well, first I want to praise Robert Riskin. And when I used to teach screenwriting at the university level, I would quote him on the first day because he used to do these Capra films. He wrote quite a few of them. And he read one morning an interview in the LA Times where he talked about an interview with Capra about the Capra touch. So he went into the studio that morning with 120 blank pieces of paper, and he said, "Here to Capra, give this to Capra touch." So
What else did he write, Sean?
I think he wrote It Happened One Night. He wrote a number of the Capra films. I forgot which one. He was a very famous screenwriter, and of course people don't remember the classic period, screenwriters, but he was one of the greats. And,
So 36, was this actually produced during the Depression?
yes.
Yes.
I mean, you can
Depression
see
went
what
on
they
quite a
you
while.
can see why they would make a film like this.
Well, that's why when he was offering the farmers money, I mean, that was a powerful scene for people.
And I tell you, you talk about how light these Capra and happy ending. I mean, but think about Meet John Doe, which was
Right.
not as successful. That was, about a guy going to commit suicide, and he becomes a lionized hero.
Right.
And people use him as a political movement, and it ends with him about to commit suicide at the end when he realizes he's been used. But thankfully, there's
like the Hunger
woman
Games.
reporter.
Barbara Stanwyck.
Yeah. So Capra really likes the female reporters, but in the happened one night. They reversed the sexes of a reporter and Gary Cooper.
Another great movie.
Clark Gable's the reporter. And I do want to...
They reversed the sexes? You mean they did transgender stuff way back then, Sean?
Yes, they did.
Remember that?
They retconned
No,
it.
you know what? No, you know what I'm going to do? This is what you get for that one. Yeah.
So
Anyway.
no, let me just do one thing. And I have a hard time, watching Gary Cooper now. After I heard one thing in Hollywood Babylon that said he had the Lupe Velez, the actress, said he had the largest penis in Hollywood, but he didn't have the ass to push it. So told you I was going to be working blue this episode.
Did it ever get compared with Spencer Tracy
Or Gary Cooper?
I'm sure they were together at one point, those two.
at a gas station or something?
No, Gary Cooper, man, he was Patricia Neal. He knocked
He
her
also
up.
had the male producer too, according to some scuttlebutt.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So-
I don't think so.
At a gas
What?
station?
Yeah.
At a gas station?
No, I don't know.
Let's go back to the film, please.
No, but no, he
Okay,
did have
well,
a
I'll
lot
tell
of
you what,
affairs.
let's
John,
not
go
take
back
it.
to the film, please.
Let's not taint it. I don't think I
Jesus.
taint
Oh
Gary
my
Cooper
God.
when I say he has a large penis.
Oh my God.
No, wait.
I'm sure that's a
Get back to the
compliment.
film. Now this
Just be
film,
relieved that Sean isn't talking about rape, okay? Just like count your
Yeah.
blessings.
right? But this film
Debbie
was so
gets it.
heartwarming and not warming, warming. I love this film. I really did. It was just Frank Capra all over again.
Have you seen this before, Debbie? Have you seen it
No,
before?
I have not.
Oh, this is the first time you saw it. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
and I loved it. I
Oh,
really
good.
did. It was.
We did have it on DVD. Frank Capra box.
Well, anyway, I really loved this film because it just showed a time when, this guy was truly a remarkable individual. He wanted to do something for the country at that time. Everybody was poor. I remember my grandmother, at that level away from the Depression, she would actually scrape the pan. She'd make mashed potatoes and she would scrape all the potatoes out of the pan. Each molecule, it seemed, came out. She really put a lot of effort into that.
And she loved mashed
peeling potatoes. And I would watch her cook, and I'd say, "That's hardly anything." She goes, "Whoa, it feeds a lot."
Yeah.
So in those days, you know what, you had to do something, and
That scene where the guy comes in to shoot him and ends up
Yeah.
eating dinner, that's a heartbreaking scene.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some. That's what I mean. Capra can, he can do it. I mean, the stuff seems very real. And,
I love this movie too, but the thing that gave me the most joy watching it this time were all those familiar faces.
Yeah.
And this was the golden era of supporting actors.
Right.
It's sort of like you recognize, if you watch old movies, if you watch TCM, it's like the top 10 people in this movie you've seen a million times in different films, and they're all great. They have great voices. They have great faces, and you've seen them so many times. And it's sort of like when we watched The Maltese Falcon, and what was great about that film was everybody had a moment. You had Peter Lorre, Sidney Greenstreet, Mary Astor. It's like everybody had a moment. And that's true of these people. It's just, Bancroft and, everybody was great. I mean, I really enjoyed this movie. And it's odd how commonly, as Ralph pointed, how commonly accepted it was to go around and punch people.
Yeah.
And even in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington,
Yeah.
after the press makes fun of Jimmy Stewart, he goes around and punches people too. So
that's when men
I
were
guess
men.
punching people was a sign of integrity.
At times change. I mean, 30 years ago, you get pulled over for drunk driving. What do? They take your beer and say, go home. Now they'll lock you up like that. So it's just a different time. You can't, we talk about this all the time. You can't just look at it through today's lenses. back then in those movies, that's what they did. It was, you look at the Indian movies, they do that in every Indian movie too.
Well, and
today,
frankly,
so.
the punches don't really do anything.
Right. I mean, it's almost
but
like
it's
a
just,
cartoon.
It's just funny. It's just, I'm not trying to compare it to now. It's just,
no,
kind
I
of,
know.
Well, I would argue that the way DUIs are handled now is an improvement. I'm just going to put that
Oh,
out
no,
there.
I'm absolutely. But am I lying? I mean, that's what it was like back in the day. Cops
I don't know.
didn't
I'm
pull
not
you-
that old, so I'm not
They
sure.
didn't. Well, yep.
Remember,
I
you're
didn't
talking
drink,
to
by
the
the way.
kid.
they
back
either
then.
took them, they either
Baby.
poured them out or they took them.
Yeah.
Chris
Yeah.
and Drew are the babies here.
Yeah.
Right. That's true.
Speaking of the babies, do you guys like this film, Chris and Drew?
Drew, you want to
No,
go?
go ahead,
first?
Chris. Go ahead.
Yeah. You know, I like this film. I got more out of it. I think I've seen it at least once before. I have seen the Mr. Deeds, the Adam Sandler remake, which is pretty awful, but does have Winona Ryder in it. So, hey, it's not all bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a fan. And
Yeah.
but with this movie, it's funny. I found myself really kind of looking at it from the perspective of being made during the Depression,
Right.
you know, and how, you know, $20 million in the Depression was, you know, an unearthly sum, right? Almost inconceivable at that time, and how a movie like this obviously was going to hit big and was going to be a hit, partially because, you know, they set this guy up from, you know, he's from small town America, Mandrake Falls, and he goes to the city. And, you know, they play him for a rube, and he's not. He's actually, you know, pretty smart, keeps to himself. He plays everything close to the vest, but he's actually much more intelligent than he would appear. And, you know, there's that whole country versus city thing going on. And I think especially at the time, there was a lot of people in the, you know, a lot of people were out of work, and there was still, while a lot of rich people had been obviously hurt deeply by the Depression, some so much that they killed themselves quite literally. There were plenty that were still doing okay. Do you know what I mean? They weren't looking for their next meal. You know, they were still hanging in there. They were doing pretty well. And I did find it interesting, like, you know, there was definitely kind of a city versus country vibe there, and the idea that, and it's an idea that we've seen in our films and in literature and stuff for years in this country. The idea that somehow or another good country folk are less corrupted than the city folk are.
And they have more common sense.
Yes. And one of the things I found a little bit interesting, and it was something I actually mentioned to my wife, was in that scene where they're asking him to cough up 180 grand for the opera, right? I found that to be very interesting because obviously theaters, places like that were probably hurting just as bad, if not worse, during the Great Depression. But I also got the vibe that there was a little bit of classism there, in the sense that opera is something that rich people do.
Right.
But at the same time, it's because of guys that were, you know, filthy rich, and maybe they could have done better stuff with their money, but that a lot of like beautiful theaters and libraries and things like that were built. You know, whether it was Rockefeller and those guys and things like that. And don't get me wrong, I'm not making those guys out to be heroes, but I thought that was kind of funny that I felt that there was a real little like country versus city, especially in that sequence where they kind of broke that down. But then obviously, you know, there's a real kind of, I'm sorry, John, I don't want to upset you here. There's a real leftist vibe in this film, with just the idea that I'm going to give away $20 million to these men that need it.
It's going to ruin the country.
Exactly. And that all these rich people who were doing okay, once again, you know, they obviously had jobs and were doing okay, would actually say that, no, he's crazy. And that we want to keep that from happening so they can get a little extra on the top. And I did like his whole thing about, he's in a big cruise ship, there's a guy doing okay in a rowboat, and then there's another guy drowning.
Right.
You know? Right. So you know, it's funny, but you know, it's a good little film, you know? It didn't really, I was actually more interested in just the idea of when it was made and how it was made and how it appealed to people, than the movie itself. I think I'd seen it before, but I can't swear to it.
So the masses walk out of this film and feel what? Like, I have a chance.
The masses, they
The
feel,
little guy won.
They laugh.
yeah, that they feel
He's not the
bullied.
little guy. He got $20
He is the
million.
little guy. No, he's giving it all away.
Well,
He is the
but
little
He
he
guy.
showed
had
up,
the money
the
to
big
give away.
guys.
But
He became a big
yeah,
man because he had the money.
But the idea that he is that he has integrity and has,
Right,
caring and
he was
empathy.
And the
honest
money didn't
character.
corrupt him.
Right.
Exactly.
He was an
And
honest.
It's sort of like a superhero
Almost, he was
movie.
too
You
good.
sit there and say, "Oh, I wish I had. What would I do if I had those
Right.
powers?" And it's like, "Oh, this is one of us who gets to be rich and turn the tables on
Yeah.
these people."
Yeah,
but
Sean has a
this-
plan. Sean has a plan if we hit it big, how we set up trust funds and everything, and we give our money away, and we have our kids.
And we're going to finance the podcast.
Yeah.
Well, you
But
could pay for
it's a brilliant idea.
pay for
And I
1
think it
month
might
of the
work.
website. That's all. I'm not asking for a lot.
Yeah, the website gets a lot of traffic too, so we should keep that up.
We have a website.
Oh yeah. It's interesting you said it's leftist because Capra was a pretty big lefty. So a lot of his, he believed in socialism. So there's definitely a slant to that. And listen, it doesn't bother me. To me, it's about the incorruptible spirit, right? And that's what Gary Cooper represented, and that's supposed to be America.
It's kind of another rich people suck movie.
It is. It is not
Except
quite.
in
They're
this,
not quite
the
as
poor people
sucky
are
as
just
that other
as
movie, but yeah, they're
I think they're
sucky.
pretty well. Those guys just wanted money for themselves. They weren't.
No,
thinking
because
about
Cooper was rich, and look what he did with it.
who? What?
Cooper,
Mr. D.
Longfellow Deeds.
Not Mr. Cooper, the actor. You mean the character he played?
Yeah,
gave away
Longfellow
$20 million.
Yes.
Yeah. He is very noble.
He didn't become king and then want to beat someone over the head with a rock.
No, I understood. All right, Drew.
So I've never seen this movie.
Wow.
I've never seen this movie.
I hadn't
I
either.
looked back. I've only ever seen one Gary Cooper movie, High Noon,
Oh,
which
great
of
movie.
course is an excellent movie and a classic. Not like one of my favorite westerns, but one of those movies that like this is a good movie, of course, but also I get the importance of it, and he is really excellent in that movie. I'm really breaking critical ground here by asserting these things. It's funny because I would say like I really like classic movies, but classic movies isn't really a genre. It's like movies that were made before 1960 or something, I guess. So there's lots of classic movies from that era that are wonderful and lots that aren't good. And I didn't like this movie very much. Not just because, they call it a tuba the whole movie. It's a euphonium. Like, have some respect.
Right.
But I feel like like Chris mentioned that scene that was country versus city. To me, that's the whole movie is country versus city. And it's like city people are greedy and gross and dumb, and they're not real, and country people are pure and all that kind of stuff. And like, that doesn't really connect with me at all. I feel like it's like yearning for a fictional time that never existed kind of thing.
Like the Beverly Hillbillies.
Right. Well, that's, of course, that's the obvious comparison. But I think, it was like the whole town was simpletons, except for this one guy. And I was like, are they supposed to be simpletons, or are they supposed to be pure? And it didn't work for me at all. It didn't connect with it at all. I respected what the film was. I've seen other Capra movies. I recently got turned on to It's a Wonderful Life, which is an excellent film. And I've seen Mr. Smith Goes to Washington a million years ago, and I remember enjoying it. I did wonder at the end if we were going to find out in court if Mr. Deeds really was Santa Claus, but we never found out. So I wondered if maybe that was a cliffhanger. And I also had a joke about Babe never hurting sheep, but I'm not going to go there. It actually reminded me of a movie which is clearly inspired by it, and I'm not Mr. Deeds. I haven't seen the Adam Sandler version. I would rather watch The Hudsucker Proxy again, because I really like that movie, but it's also about, like this guy's a yokel and we'll take advantage of him. And
that movie had a Capra vibe to it.
Yeah. And deliberately so and consciously so.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that because like, it's, it's in color, it's newer, it's the Coen brothers. I happen to like that movie, but
the fast talking reporter.
Yeah. And I'd stake my Pulitzer on it, that kind of thing. And so this movie, it was one of those movies where I was kind of like, it's certainly not bad, but it just didn't do anything for me. Not because there's, something specific that's missing. And it was interesting to watch it and just be kind of bored because, especially It's a Wonderful Life is a similar kind of, milieu and, small town and all this kind of stuff. And that movie really was great. Really great. And I don't know if you have, what is it? Bedford Falls? Is that what it's called?
Bedford Falls.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have that without having, Mandrake, as
Mandrake
a
Falls,
prototype and something to precede it. So, I'm always happy to see movies I haven't seen, especially, you love these kinds of movies from this era. So thank you for bringing it and recommending it, but it's not something I've ever seen before. And it's not something I'm interested in watching again, but I won't lie. There's a lot of movies that have come up that I've never seen It Happened One Night. I've never seen Sergeant York. Like there's a lot of holes in my classic movie knowledge, which I'm happy to watch at some point. So John, if you keep bringing these kind of movies, I'm happy to share them.
Drew,
I don't expect to like
I will
all of
still
them,
be bringing them.
No, I'm saying I think it's great. I think
You did bring
it's
up a
fun
good
to watch
point,
Ralph
though.
squirm, but
Well, we
you
should
did
do
bring
a
up a good
whole. Let's
point.
do a
That
whole
is-
month
that-
of nothing but classic films,
Okay.
just like TCM.
Now you're mocking me. You brought
am
up a good
mocking
point
you.
though, because I think Star Wars is a classic. But when I say classic films, you're right. It's not a genre. It's for me. It's the golden age of Hollywood is what I'm really talking about. The old movies with the old movie stars.
Right.
Because
Which
you're
is
right.
a fair definition.
Yeah,
of
you're
course,
absolutely right though. When I say classic, because there's a lot of current movies that I think Raiders of the Lost Ark is a classic.
Oh,
to me.
absolutely, yeah.
But that's not what when I talk about classics, I'm talking about the old Hollywood with movie stars. That's why I love that era. I love those movies. I always have. Even as a kid, I love those movies. So
Yeah, see, I just don't understand it. And the classic film thing or the old film thing, I just never vibe to, and I don't know why. And
Well,
But there are
you're-
people today who would say, I don't like old movies. I don't like Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3.
no,
And
I know,
like
I get.
But no, but I'm saying it's like that is a fantastic movie that
Right.
when I was a lot younger, 12 or 15 or something, I would have loved it, but I was like, it's old. I don't want to watch it. My
Right.
dad's like, you should watch it. And he was right. But you have to sort of force people to give these movies a chance after
I have to give my
a certain
granddaughters
age.
$1.
Yeah, sometimes you have to pay them to watch it and stuff.
But
And-
Ralph, I get you because the movies you love, like those early '70s movies, they're gritty, right? They're not stylized at all. They're really not. And you go to an old movie like these that are made in studios, and the acting is very different. Although Cooper is probably the most, like Stewart is probably one of the most naturalistic
Yeah,
actors.
no, I
of that
appreciate
era.
that.
So I get
What's
that.
another
I
film
totally get
other
that.
than High Noon that I would know Gary Cooper in?
Oh my God,
Sergeant York was the big one.
Yeah, Sergeant York.
Did he do
was the
some
big one where
later
he
in
won
his
the
life, like
Academy
when he was
Award.
older?
Yeah, he did was it the Fountainhead?
he was
Yeah.
also in Heart to Heart, I think.
When he made A High Noon, which is hard to believe, he was only 50.
Yeah, they did
And
look
he looked-
older. too.
Oh, wow.
He looks
That's
like
the other
he's
thing. They look
65
old.
years old
Yeah.
with so, but yeah, he did, but his peak was 30s, mid 40s. That's when Gary
He
Cooper was the
died in
biggest star Hollywood.
1961.
Yeah.
He
So
was
he
only
did-
like 60 when he
Yeah,
died or
horribly.
something,
He had
right?
colon
Yeah.
cancer and all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff, prostate.
But
Um,
he was just such a, he's
got-
Friendly
he's a-
persuasion.
you guys talk about country versus city. The movie
It's not
this
really
reminded-
country. It's small town.
Okay,
Small town America is
good.
what it
Well,
is.
that's
Right,
why it
which
reminded
isn't
me
real,
of Chevy
so.
Chase's Funny Farm. Which
Yeah,
is
you're right.
A good point.
That's true. Yeah.
And Chevy Chase is a bit. I mean, if he weren't such an a-hole, he would have been a Gary Cooper. He's a good-looking guy, tall, kind
No, he
of.
wouldn't. No,
yeah.
no.
Ralph,
I
can
love
I
the way
give
the
you
small
another
town
Gary
people
Cooper
help them
film
out.
that I think you would like?
What's that?
Pride of the Yankees. where
Oh
he
yeah,
plays
I
Lou
forgot about
Gehrig.
that
Okay,
one. Lou
I know.
Gehrig.
Private.
Yeah.
Okay, I know.
Yeah,
But
see,
he-
I've
you
never
know,
seen
Gary
I
it.
Cooper-
consider
was very
myself. Let
unassuming.
me do a little reverb for you.
Gary
Let me see if I
Gary
can do it.
Cooper, when he did Sergeant York,
I consider myself the luckiest man on the right. Is that what I'm talking
yeah,
about?
on the
Yeah,
face of
there
the
you
earth.
go.
When he
Face of the
did
earth.
Sergeant York, he didn't want to play Sergeant York because he didn't want to play that character because, he didn't think he could bring justice to it. And the only way York would let the movie be made is if Gary Cooper played the part. I mean,
That's pretty manipulative.
Other than
of
him
Sergeant
having
York.
affairs with every married woman he could get his
He
hands
did.
on,
that he did.
he
That's
seemed
why
like
you
an
don't
have
all
a movie
shucks. They were
star.
saying in this film he laid around all day long,
Yeah.
just on he's very relaxed. Like the relaxed thing you see on screen is how he was
Right.
off screen.
But like I said, other actors that work with him said when you're working with him while they're filming, it's nothing special. What's the big deal? Then when they see it on film,
Yeah.
it's very much
there
like
are
Spencer
actor-
Tracy.
I've told you the story about the guy who did The Hidden, the director of The Hidden, who said when you see Kyle MacLachlan in person, you go, "What's the big deal?"
Right.
But you put that camera on him and the lens
Right.
shoots him right. That's why they're
Yeah.
actors.
Yeah.
Usually their
Same
heads are
Robert
bigger than
Mitchum,
everybody
too.
else's.
Yeah,
I just
Mitchum.
a month or two ago, I rewatched Showgirls, and you are absolutely right about
Well, that's-
Kyle MacLachlan. I mean, he just comes right out of the screen.
comes alive in
He
that
just
film.
comes.
There's no
Amazing.
question.
Amazing.
All right. I mean,
I can't believe you're
I,
doing this to this
honestly,
classic
John,
film.
I am baffled by your love of these films. I appreciate your love of these films. But But and we came out of the same household, and
I would argue that some of the great sort of detective movies of the 70s don't really exist without the noir movies of
they're
20
all
years
this
earlier
DNAs and all this stuff.
So,
No, I'm
right.
not
So,
saying
but I think you're saying
can't-
that you just prefer the more natural execution of it, as far as it feels like real people to you. Is that
100%, 100%.
Okay.
I don't like
I mean,
John
that's
saying. I
reasonable.
don't like the
Yeah,
acting.
see?
I don't know the
Right,
acting.
I get it. No, I
And
totally
as much
get
as
that.
there is in these, at least Capra kind of balances it with some realism, like you said, his social commentary and things
Right.
like that. He's definitely saying something in these films,
Right. Oh,
And,
yeah.
you know, that's a good thing. That's a good thing, especially socialism. That's a wonderful thing, and that's what this film was all about. So,
Yeah.
Anyway, so
Good
let's
you got that out there. That's
let's
good.
rate this sucker. I'll just start. I'm gonna say Yippee-Ki-Yay.
All right. That's, you know what, Ralph? I take that as a win.
I'm glad I saw it. I've never seen it. Glad I saw it. But I don't want to see it again. And I loved it. It happened one night. I think that one I'd rewatch because of the
Oh, you've
banter that
seen
goes
it
on
happen one
Yes.
night?
I have it on Laserdisc. That's how
That's a
much I
great
like it.
movie.
Just because you have it on Laserdisc doesn't mean you've seen it.
Yeah.
though.
I have
That's
seen
true.
that one on Laserdisc. So,
That's
Chris,
not a criticism.
Chris,
I have a
give
few
me your
words.
rating.
I get it.
Yippee-Ki-Yay.
Your
Yeah.
thumb disappeared in your green screen.
It's a classic for a reason. It's got a lot of positive stuff in it. I found it most interesting, just kind of the idea of like movies that, because during the Depression, more Americans were going to movies per capita than at any other time in our history. So it's really interesting to see what was really kind of a big hit back then.
Drew.
I'm going to be generous and say Yippee-Ki-Meh, because I really just didn't enjoy watching this movie, but I respect it. I get it. And, it's got connections to movies from the era that I discovered that I am very fond of. And I meant, like, I didn't mention we're Singing in the Rain, things like that are very earnest and very sweet, like a lot of the Indian movies we've been watching that are very earnest. And I connect with that. This one is a swing and a miss for me as far as my own personal experience with it, but it does make me think I do want to see more Gary Cooper. I haven't avoided him or anything. I just haven't seen a lot of his movies. So that'll happen.
That's good. That's a good thing to come out of this. Sean and Debbie.
Yippee-ki-yay.
Yippee-ki-yay.
All right. Okay.
I'm
And
just glad
John,
I was
we got
able to share what little information I know about Gary Cooper on this podcast.
All right. So let's do a round of what you watch. Sean, do you have anything you want to say or not? Did you
Me?
watch anything? Yeah, you were
I'll tell
busy
you,
out in
okay,
California.
if I'm
Me?
going to say, I didn't watch a lot of stuff because I was going from place to place, and my dad, it was kind of depressing. But I'll tell you what I watched. I don't watch reality TV. My wife loves reality TV.
hang
She
on a
watches
second.
all the Housewives and all that. The only reality TV show I watch is Below Deck. I watch every version of Below Deck. I love that show. I love the places they go. I like the fake drama, and I like how bitching the captains always are. They're so tough. But if you're not into reality TV and you might want to check one out, that's probably the one I would go to, because it's probably, even though there's a lot of stage stuff, it's probably the most reality, because these crews really do work their asses off on these ships, and you can't fake that. Okay. So I would watch that, but that's really, I stream them on Peacock. So I watched a couple of those. I really didn't watch a lot this week though. So next week I'll have something. So the rest of you can take my time.
Oh, all right. Well, Sean and Debbie, go ahead. I'll give you a minute, and then I'll split
Well,
2 minutes.
Well, what we were watching was on Tubi, I believe, Laughing
Oh God.
from 1966. Now, I had watched it in the 90s and didn't think it held up at all. But rewatching the pilot episode,
Yeah.
it actually, more of it worked than I thought. And it was weird and colorful, and it's trying to be hip, and it's making fun of the hip stuff and the straight stuff. And what you think of it, Debbie?
I liked it. I thought it held up.
It was edgy for that time period.
Yeah.
that
Well, you
show
talk
was
about
edgy.
a show that's in its time, though. I mean, oh my God,
That is 100% in its time.
Yeah.
Like Debbie's today watching all these. She was looking for something we could show the 4-year-old. She started
Andy
watching
Griffith.
Andy Griffith.
And that was really heartwarming. I just got a really nice feeling watching that.
Talk about small town USA.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
love Andy Griffith. He was going to be
He was going to be a Baptist minister.
yeah.
Even
And his warmth,
Rogan.
he just eludes warmth. And sweetness.
Except
That's why
for
that movie
A
he
Face
did
in
was
the Crowd,
amazing.
which we
I was
Yeah,
about
Face
to
in
say,
the Crowd.
Face in the Crowd
mean,
is awesome.
It's
just
a great
incredible.
film. We reviewed
Because
that
of how
one.
good he was.
He Henry Fonda that one.
Yeah, he
He
did.
did.
And he was a good stand-up.
Anything else with Debbie and Sean? You guys good?
That's good.
All right,
That
Drew.
was it. So I want,
Oh, go ahead. Go
want to
ahead.
say about my favorite reality show, 90 Day Fiance.
Oh, Rosie loves
That's
that
because
show
you
too.
edited that, right?
And
I
you know
love
what
it.
pisses me off about it? A woman I know, husband, divorced her and moved to Cambodia and bought a wife.
Nice.
You know, a much younger wife too. Surprising.
Well, if you're going to buy one,
Yeah,
I mean,
why would
buy
you-
a younger
why would
one.
you buy
You
an
know
old
what I mean?
And I
buy an
thought
older
one?
that
Gotta do with
guy
$20
is a
million.
real bastard. Not only that, he's stupid. Because if he were smart, he would have went to the TLC portal and applied to be on that show and been paid to move to Cambodia and marry and buy a wife.
Okay.
He could have
Is
made
that
money
your
on
advice?
top of it. That may have paid for the
Sean,
wife.
don't promote that stuff.
Okay. We might have just lost us.
I'm disapproving, but if you're going to
Okay.
do it,
Yeah.
get paid for it.
We're never going to get to 6 likes if you talk like that,
So
Sean.
cynical. All right, Drew.
So don't let the buzzer go off because I'm going to open my heart in a second.
Well,
But,
you've got 2 minutes to do it. So
No, stop it. Don't do that shit. I've been watching What We Do in the Shadows, most recent season. I'm catching up on it. I'm about halfway through. I've always loved that show, and I just love that every season it's not funnier. It just stays funny, and it does different things. And I just have a lot of admiration for that, being able to stretch that out. But I watched a movie that just came out on Netflix. I had a very strong reaction to it that I'm not surprised by, but I didn't really expect. It's called You People. It's directed by Kenya Barris, written by Kenya Barris and Jonah Hill, starring Jonah Hill and Eddie Murphy.
Yeah,
And
we were going to watch that.
It's about a Jewish guy and a black woman who get married and how their families react to it and how they conflict or not across cultures, around them. And it's very strange because I personally related to it a lot, marrying somebody who's not Jewish and the family's reaction to that. And the portrayal of race and of Jewish people, it's very cartoonish. I don't know if I was offended, but it was very cartoonish and conspiracy minded without necessarily being wrong as far as the way that people actually behave to each other. And I found it was very funny, but it was a lot of stuff sort of swirling around, and it made me cry pretty hard at the end, actually, because I did not expect to have. It has a happy ending that doesn't ring true based on my experience, but it was worth watching. I thought it was interesting. Plus, there's just so many talented people in that movie and behind that movie, and Kenya Barris is so funny. And I'm sorry he's not doing another season of Black AF, which was his one season, sort of like a Curb Your Enthusiasm show about himself. That's on Netflix. But You People is a thinker, and Debbie, you'll like it. Jonah Hill has his Stutz haircut in this movie. So
Well, that's one of the reasons we
why
wanted to see this.
Yeah, I saw him. And I love Jonah Hill. Now
Yeah,
that
he's
I
great.
saw him.
he's great. But yeah, no, it's worth a watch. But depending on what your background and what your experience is, you may have a very strong reaction to it, and also you may have a very strong reaction to it as is this supposed to be Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? 2023 version.
Guess who's coming to Sabbath?
Yeah, it's interesting.
I watched that last night. And
okay.
I enjoyed
What
it.
did you think of it?
I enjoyed it. Now, yes, it is a little stereotypical. They really hit hard, hit it right on the nose. And Eddie Murphy's in this film playing his fiance's father. And anytime Eddie Murphy's in a film, there's a potential it's going to be fantastic. And I thought he was pretty good. I mean, he was very low key. He's playing his disapproving father of this choice that she made to get married. But I thought it was pretty good. And ultimately it got to a place, like you said, it was very stereotypical, the stuff they were hitting pretty hard. But by the end of it, you kind of went, okay, I like where it ended. And I thought they all did a nice job.
Is this your 2 minutes, Ralph, right now?
No, I was using
okay.
since I paused for Drew, I thought I'd use it.
Oh,
It kind of reminded me, I think it was called Keeping the Faith. It was Ben Stiller, Ed Norton, and Jenna Elfman. And that had a really, that movie had some funny stuff in it, as I recall watching it 20 years ago or whenever the hell it came out. but it had one of those sort of fake happy endings. Like she was secretly converting the whole time, and it didn't ring true. But the portrayal of the kind of tension that people have when they try to make a life because they love someone from a very different culture, some of that was realistic as I recall it. And there's a lot of that, like the experience of the couple that seemed very, very real. So I feel like there's probably a much better movie version of the movie, but what's out there, people are really shitting on it. I don't think it deserves that, and I think it is funny.
Yeah, I don't think they should shit on it. And Jonah Hill's the relationship between the two was pretty good. I thought they were pretty.
Yeah, their chemistry as a couple. I've never
chemistry
seen
was
that
good.
actress before, and she's great. She's charming, and I'll follow Jonah Hill.
And he's
a lot of
Jonah
places.
Hill. I mean, he does his Jonah Hill thing, and he really did it well. So,
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it mainly because of seeing that recent documentary with Jonah Hill and a psychiatrist.
I'll look forward to your thoughts on it.
Yep.
And Drew, didn't it help that I did Kelly's family tree and literally traced her back to Abraham?
Look, you came to my wedding and celebrated and did a backflip. And I will always be grateful for people who came and celebrated it. So,
well, I would.
But I did trace your wife back to Abraham.
All right, Chris.
Okay. Given that we talked about Once Upon a Time in the West, I naturally felt the need to cue up The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly again.
Yeah, we
I
did.
discovered a wonderful little thing, something that I didn't actually know, is there's actually a 3-hour version of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Most of the version, the one that I have, is on DVD, is 240. I think that's the one we're probably all familiar with. There's actually a shorter version where they cut out the whole Confederate bridge sequence.
Chris,
Mhm.
is that the Indian version?
Yes, that's the one that was released in India. Exactly. But there is an entire 3-hour version. I saw it. I was looking on IMDb that they mentioned there. And if you have MGM Plus, it used to be known as Epix. You get it with cable, or at least I'm getting it with cable right now. They have this 3-hour
cable?
version of it. Exactly. What's cable? Well, so that was kind of cool. I will say this: I haven't finished it yet, but of the new scenes that have been added, they don't really add anything. I think that there were probably scenes that could be trimmed, but they were kind of cool, if you're a big fan the way I am. And the other, I almost hesitate to mention this, the other film that I watched very recently was Role Models from 2008.
Oh, I love that.
That's a funny movie.
Oh my
with
god,
Paul Rudd and what is it, Sean William Scott?
that is so fun.
It's
Which
like a daycare. Was that a daycare?
No.
no, they play guys that have to do like
They sell
Big
Monster
Brothers.
Drink or something. They sell.
They were selling Minotaur.
Yeah, they have to be Big Brothers. Yeah.
Fantastic. And the thing that I remember most about it is my wife and I went to see it at like a matinee back in 2008. And it is a hard, well,
It's
maybe not
raunchy.
hard, but it is solidly R.
Yeah.
There's naked women, there's constant cursing, lots of sex jokes, all of that stuff. And we literally, I remember we came out of this like 4:00 matinee at like AMC, and there were all these little kids there. And I just was like, did their parents just not look at the rating or look what this movie was? Or then also not care enough to take them out when they were in there. But either way, that was a really fun.
They had McLovin in there too.
What'd you say?
They had
McLovin,
McLovin.
yes.
McLovin was in there as well.
That's the one that has all this LARPing, right?
Yes, that's the one with the LARPing. And
funny.
Just to show you that I'm not just critical of sometimes Indian movies going on too long, the whole final LARPing sequence is a few minutes too long. It takes a little while to get to the end there.
Fair enough.
But all in all, it's just there's a great line.
Visceral reaction to that movie.
Well, there's a line in there that where the young African American kid keeps calling Paul Rudd different Ben Affleck. He calls him Reindeer Games, calls him things like that. And he's like, I'm not Ben Affleck. And he just looks at him and he goes, you white, you Ben Affleck. To this day, that line kills me.
And who's the other guy opposite Paul Rudd? What's his name again?
Sean Patrick Scott?
I
Sean
love that
Stifler.
guy.
Sean William
Stifler's
Scott.
mom.
Stifler. Yeah.
Stifler's
Not Stifler's mom. He's not his
I
own
know.
mom. That would
Stifler's
be
his
weird.
line.
You ever see the rundown with him and The Rock?
Yeah,
Yes,
that's a fun
I
movie.
did.
It's not
Yeah,
bad.
that's a fun
You ever
one.
see The Goon?
Early Peterberg.
Yes, the Goon
Goon
is
is
I
very
haven't
great.
seen him in anything
Excellent,
lately.
Lagoon.
Goon is great.
is-
Well, Sean William Scott is right now on Welcome to Flatch, which is a sitcom that is actually pretty funny. I've watched a
He's
bunch
the guy
of
that
it,
shoots
and-
Will Ferrell in the neck in Old School too.
Yes, he is. He darts.
He took
He's
over
good.
in Lethal
Plus-
Weapon, the series too.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't
All
know
right.
that. Wow.
Yeah.
If you guys want to watch a nice reality show, you guys got to check out MILF Manor on TLC.
Oh, I
What?
saw
Milf
that.
Manor?
Disgusting. What a disgusting. If that was men and their daughters, would you be saying the same thing?
It's gross. It's gross. But
repulsive.
there's some
Wait a
guy
minute.
that does a
Is
recap
it
on
their step-
YouTube.
But
that
is it
looks
their
like it's right.
stepdaughters or their daughters?
No,
Which- 'cause-
it's it's there.
It's each other's daughters.
All right, but that's all. I just saw that out. It's terrible. It's terrible. Those I don't know why they do
Oh
it.
yeah.
Wait a
you
minute,
hate
wait a
it.
minute.
Right.
What network is it on?
TLC.
For learning.
Disney Plus.
All right. So the one I want to
Thank
talk about
God.
is I actually watched The Menu on Netflix.
Oh,
You know, I've been very
Fine.
curious
the
about
Ray
that.
Fiennes film.
Great,
John, it's another film where rich people are dickheads. I mean, it's just the way it is. It's just what's going on.
So
in
you
the
don't
world.
think I'd like it?
I think you would like it because it's a horror movie and it's all about
horror movie?
It's a horror movie. I can't explain the
I
genre.
thought it
don't
was a
spoil
horror
it.
movie.
I haven't seen it.
Well, it's about a bunch of foodies who go to an island to be fed by Ray Fiennes, who plays the lead chef. But it's really about, it's kind of the allegory about creators and consumers and how people make things and people consume things and how people use the things that they're created to make money and how they're all affected by it. And, you know, foodies, how some posers are created. It's just a really good play. And Anya Joy Taylor, is that her name?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Close.
she and the guy from
Furiosa.
Mad Max, Fury Road. The kid who played
Tom
this-
Hardy.
Nicholas Holt.
Do we
Yeah,
have
no,
to
Nicholas Holt?
Nicholas
Film
Holt. Nicholas Holt.
he's wonderful.
And she plays John. I loved it. I'll give you one line. She plays this woman named Margot, and ultimately it comes out that she's not really Margot, but somebody else. She goes, "I'm just a girl from Brockton, Massachusetts." I don't know why you people are giving me that. It's just great.
Brockton, man.
I don't know. I've
Wow.
never heard anybody reference
Wow.
Brockton in a film, and I just thought that was great. You guys should check it out. It's really good. Ray Fiennes is unbelievable in this part,
Awesome.
and it's a good
I'll
film.
check it out.
And there's a lot of subtext in there that's really good. and
I love
it's a blast.
subtext.
All right, so let's spin the wheel with two people.
Only
on
two
it.
left, right?
We have two left.
I'll be shocked if Ralph wins.
I wouldn't be.
Anything is possible.
Me
I
and Drew,
wouldn't be shocked at all.
me and Drew are going to go for a spin.
There they are, two of them. You guys ready?
That.
Ready to go for a spin?
Let's go.
All right.
Come on. Oh,
There it is.
yeah.
All right,
I know who's going to win next week.
all right. There it is.
All right.
Drew.
Well, I'm honored just to be nominated, so thank you.
Fully nominated. You're in.
I already know which movie I want to bring. I have not seen it. It is called The Banshees of Inisherin.
Oh, good. I want to see that.
I've seen this.
I love the director and his brother's movies. I love the combination of the lead actors. I didn't realize this is Colin Farrell's first acting nomination for an Oscar ever. I didn't realize this movie was the first one. And
He didn't get nominated for Alexander?
No, he didn't, because that movie was terrible.
I thought he got
although I read
Razzie.
an article that he said he said he was sure they were all going to win Oscars. Like, everybody on the movie were like, this is going to happen. And then it came out and he's like, I want it to be dead. Like, oh my God. Plus, that's one of those movies. There's like 4 different cuts available and they all suck, but in different ways, which is pretty exciting. But yeah, so I'm really excited about that movie, Banshees of Inisherin. I've been looking forward to it since I first heard of it. So let's watch that this week as we get closer in the next couple of months to the award season. And I am very curious to see how it compares to the last movie that we watched that was current, Triangle of Sadness, also a multiple Oscar nominee. So we shall see.
Sounds good. I'm not even going to complain about new films because I guess I started this trend. Okay.
Boy, you started out. You
Everybody,
started
that's
after
it. John, anything you want to say?
No. Oh, yeah. Yeah, of course I do. You know what? Dad said something to me
Oh,
before I
God.
left for California. And he said, John, I really hope that more people subscribe and they smash the like button. Don't you think that's something Dad would say? Come on, that is something he would say.
I'm sure.
So
it's so sad.
please do it
It's
for
not
him.
going to matter.
That's not true. Do it for him.
All right.
Love you, Dad.
Yeah, do it for Dad. There you go. At least
I
we
want
get
to see
a
his
couple
picture in the podcast too.
days. Well,
Oh, you know what? Next time we'll bring it up.
okay.
We'll bring up. We'll
And I
bring it
just want to offer our condolences to the Quadrucci's family, and I just
And the
want-
Quattruccis.
yeah, and the Quadrucci's. But John, seeing that your dad left us on your birthday, you know, he was there for your birth, and then you were here to see him, you know, go, and it's kind of like an honor in a way. I know
Well,
it's hard.
You know,
but-
Deb, when I first thought, when it first happened, that was not my thought. My thought was he stuck it to me one last
I have to
time.
tell you the truth, John. My immediate thought was, "Oh my God, what a move!"
But
I mean, if of all people,
but then Debbie, you'll
Sounds like a
appreciate
baller.
that. Then I started
gangster.
after reacting the way I reacted. I looked at it two ways. One, it was a way for me to grieve by myself in private, and then my birthday and the anniversary of his death is forever linked going forward. And that's kind of, and to your point, it is kind of an honor, right? We're inexplicably linked, and I'm
eternally.
grateful for that. I'm
You
grateful
know.
for that. I wasn't originally. I'm not going to lie.
And all I got was his name.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it was already used when
You've got
it.
a
That's
name.
right.
You got it.
Yeah,
You
you're the
got
third
it.
one.
One other before
So
him,
I appreciate
then him,
that,
then
Debbie.
me.
Thank
so
you.
I'm the third. So that's my.
Well, I like Charlie Chaplin died on Christmas, and one of his kids just said, "That's just like Dad wanting to ruin Christmas for all of us."
All right, enough of this. I mean, let's.
No, it's good. It's good to
yeah,
celebrate.
rest in power, Dad.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
everybody have a good week, and we'll
Yeah.
see you next week.
See you
All right.
next week.
Next week. Good night, everybody.